Greetings, everyone out there who is watching this later. Normally this would be a live, but we are doing a pre-recording here so that we can pop it up live later on. I have with me Julian Batchelor on the panel today. So welcome, Julian. It's great to have you here. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Helen. It's great to be here.
Good stuff. I know that you're down south. Is it pretty cold down there today? I know it was like -2 here in Christchurch this morning.
I don't know. I'm in the lovely home of, I'm doing so much traveling. I don't even know what home I'm in. But they've been very kind and very hospitable and lovely. And so, I'm in a great place in Waitangi.
Yes. And I know they have a great fireplace there because I have also been in their home and been fortunate to have their hospitality. And I know they've got a lovely fire, which I'm looking forward to. I'm heading down that way in August, Julian. Okay. Okay, then let's get started. So today we're going to discuss co-governance. But before we talk about co-governance, I'd like to start with what makes us Kiwi. We'll talk a little bit about race and racism, because this is something I think we need to unpack before you get into the co-governance and why you are doing what you're doing, Julian. I remember as a child, actually, I won't reminisce too much, but some of my childhood I remember was enjoying eating a hangi, sitting in a garage with guitars playing and a lot of the Maori songs, Prince Tuitika. I have Maori family and other cultures are also now married into my family. So for me, being a New Zealander is not bicultural, but multicultural. And as you know, we do have a lot of different cultures in New Zealand. I also have, my sons are part Maori. So they're adults now. And I can recall, we'll just touch on the racism stuff, because I hear a lot about we have got a racist country. Now, I don't think racism is rampant in New Zealand. However, there is racism, but there's racist behaviour in every country. And I'm not saying that we need to minimize it at all. In fact, I have a personal account with my sons. Like I said, I've got two sons. One has got fair skin, like myself, and the other son has got his father's olive skin, and he's also got a Maori name. So throughout his childhood, I could actually name or pinpoint 3 times that I know of where he was treated with racist behaviour. Okay. Now, the very first one was when he was only 6 years old and didn't get invited to a birthday party because the girl told him that her parents had said he's a Maori. Okay, so there you go. There's one. And yeah, that's one account. And the second one would have been the same son. He was a model student throughout his education, where even at primary school, the teachers would buddy him up with the naughty kids, hoping that his behaviour would rub off on them. Although when he get to secondary school, one of his English teachers, so she was from London, and she chose, when she was reporting on the students, she chose not to focus on him academically, but on his attire, actually. The report was littered with comments about things like his tie wasn't always correct, and the fact that he didn't show a lot of interest in her class was how she would have wanted. You could actually feel her bias, and that was appalling. So I have seen some of this behaviour. And the third time, when I took my sons to Rarotonga for the first time, and I think that was 16 and 18. Now, I was standing there with both my sons, and my oldest boy was searched by the security guard, and neither myself or my other son was. So I made a statement to the security guard about this. So there's definitely racist behaviour in our country. However, that works both ways as well, because I've seen racist behaviour from Maori to Pākehā as well. So what are your thoughts around racism in New Zealand, Julian?
Well, as you were talking, I was thinking about Ryan Bridge. And one day I was driving around Auckland, and there was a live radio show. Ryan Bridge was the host of this show, and he was talking about racism, and he said, just ring up if you have anybody who's experienced racism. And so I thought, it's going to be interesting. And a Maori lady, she said she was in her 50s, said she went into a high-end bag shop in Newmarket, and she was looking for a bag. And she said the shopkeeper just didn't take her eyes off her as she was going around the bags. And the shopkeeper's eyes were glued on this Maori lady. And Ryan Bridge says, "Oh, how did you feel about that?" She said, "Oh, it made me feel terrible because, that I was being watched so closely." Anyway, the conversation just went on a little bit, and then the conversation started. And so I got on, fortunately. I thought, I need to ring up about this. And, Ryan Bridge was saying, "Oh, isn't this terrible? This is an evidence of racism in New Zealand and how bad it is. And, you can't even go to the shop without having somebody watch you like a hawk." But I rang up and I said this, you know what, I can totally empathize with the lady in the shop, because Maori are only 14% of the population, and yet 51% of the beds in prisons are held by Maori. And that lady in the shop, the shopkeeper, thought, if I get a bag nicked, I'm going to have my profits for the day go down the gurgler. Now, that's not racist. It's just the lady in the shop guarding her goods so she doesn't lose a bag. Now, if Maori got clean with their criminal activity, they're actually the ones causing the racism. They're causing the people to treat them in a certain way because of their behavior in society. That's how I see it. And, let's just think about that. You don't get other cultures being watched like a hawk in the shops because they're not a threat. They've got great records, criminal records, and they're not a threat. So I think there's a lot of racism is actually being caused by Maori with their bad behavior. Like, we don't let people into our meetings if they're badly behaved. And it doesn't matter what nationality they are, their skin color. We say, if you're going to behave badly, you can't come in. Now, the fact is that 95% of the people who behave badly in our meetings are Maori. And so the media gets hold of that and says, "Oh, you're a racist." And I said, look, Maori are creating this situation. If they were well behaved, we'd let them all in. But they can't. They're not well behaved. And so they're creating a really bad, and they're giving Maori a really bad name. Now, I know that the government is the most racist organization on the planet. Our present government, they're giving Maori all sorts of favors and handouts, and that's racist. It's apartheid. And so it's more complex than just somebody being picked on because of the color of their skin. There's a lot of issues at stake here with what's causing this people to, non-Maori to have attitudes towards Maori. And it's really, ultimately, Maori have made this situation. If they were a clean race, by clean I mean clean criminally, clean in terms of their, model citizens in terms of their behavior, then when that lady came into the bag shop, she would have welcomed the Maori lady and said, "You're a 5-star customer. I've got no risk of anything being pinched with you." But as it was, there was a 51% chance she was going to get a bag pinched, going on the stats.
Okay, so yeah, well, let's just unpack a little bit of what you said. And it's interesting because the more we talk, the more you can see that there's so much that we could unpack here, even before we get to the co-governance, right? I mean, this is a conversation that I think New Zealanders need to have. So well done for bringing your honesty here. And this is what I'm about. Like, people may not like to hear some of the stuff we say, and this is also in other areas that I'm challenging, not only this co-governance, but all of these conversations need to be had so that we can understand each other as people and, within our differences. Okay. I just want to mention one thing around your use of the term Maori. Okay. And you've got the stats here, which back it up completely, 100% agree with you. I just have an issue with, and I'm not getting at you, but I think we do need to address it. And you did kind of qualify it a little bit, so that's okay. But I have an issue when I hear out there, Māori this, Māori that, Māori this, Māori that, because there's two things to this, okay? It is not all Māori, as you know, and you did qualify it by saying they're giving Māori a really bad name. So when we talk about Māori, I really would like or hope that people actually start to qualify it and say some Māori people or the elite or those, because there's just as many non-Māori people who you need to watch with your bags. And, there's a lot of crime out there, and it's not only by Māori. However, I just get really fed up with hearing, like I said, Māori this, Māori that. It's putting them into a, like the other side of that is also saying that, imagine if you're a Māori person hearing this all the time around the need, for example, from the government saying we need to do this for Māori. In education, I taught almost 20 years, and every year we would have the MOE tell us, or ask us, how are your Māori students succeeding, achieving? And I'll be like, what are you talking about? My Māori students are achieving like everybody else, so we're always putting this narrative on Māori as if they can't achieve or as if they're not capable. And I get really cross with that, because we're putting them into a box that they actually need our support, need more support than us. Well, I don't believe they do at all. Okay, I'm really opposed to any race-based policies. That's why I'm opposed to co-governance, as well as a lot of other areas, and so is our party. But yeah, I think we need to be careful in talking about Māori, because you're kind of putting them all into that same picture. It'd be like saying, oh, all Christians are this, where I know that some are so radical, and I think, gosh, they put me off Christianity. Okay, so and that goes with lots of things. It's like saying all men. Do you remember what's her name, Marama Davidson? All cis white men are, committing violence. How do you think males feel about that? So I just had to put that out there, Julian, that hearing Māori this and Māori that, I think, for example, with the co-governance that you'll get into, I see that as not Māori. Actually, we have a lot of Māori in our party, and we have a lot of Māori, I'm sure, that actually agree with you, because this is actually coming from one particular group of Māori. Okay, just like the behaviour that you're talking about with some Māori do behave in a way where then people start looking at them, but not all Māori do behave like this. So I just want to make that clear anyway. Now, moving on.
No, I'd like to comment on what you just said.
Yeah, sure.
Maori are the only race in New Zealand who are 3 times overrepresented. That's the first thing. So secondly is I make a point in my seminars of saying that there are good Maori, and there's good Europeans, and there's good Chinese, and there's bad Chinese, and every single ethnicity has the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Nice.
And I'm very, very clear about that.
Nice.
But Maori are 3 times overrepresented in the prisons, and I want to know why that is so. The second thing I want to know is why. And I'm not going to blame it on colonialism. It has to do with behaviour. It's nothing to do with colonialism. Maori have done extremely well out of colonialism. In fact, everything they have, completely, except maybe their own culture, has been the result of colonialism. TVs, electricity, houses, water, health. Maori used to have a life expectancy of between 25 and 30 years at 1840. Now it's between 70 and 80. They've done very well out of colonialism. But,
yes,
I think my question in my seminar is, where are all the good Maori? Saying to the thugs and the criminals, why don't you tidy up your act, because you're letting the race down. You're letting our ethnicity down. Where are they all? And they don't poke their heads up because of tikanga and Maori culture, where groupthink rules, and they don't want to be bullied. I've got to clean. No, they don't want to put their head up. This is something. There's something radically wrong with Maori culture that's actually pushing Maori down and destroying Maoridom. So they need a lot of Maori just go to Australia to get out of this so they can make a life for themselves.
Yeah.
And I've got many friends who are Maori who've done this. I've got a cleaner in my house. I've got a beautiful home in the Bay of Islands. And she rang me recently and said, I can't do any more work for you. She'd worked for me for many years. And I said, why not? She said, I'm being bullied and intimidated by the Maori in the community. And I said, don't worry about that. And she said, no, I can't do that. They're so severe. And so they gang up and bully and they're thuggery and all this sort of stuff. And I'm going, Maori, and you know, we had a lovely Maori lady in our meeting 2 nights ago who got up. She was 65 years old. We had some Maori in the meeting. They were activists. We let them in because they were being respectful. They waited till the end, to the Q&A question time. To their credit, they were great. And they had all sorts of, you know, what Julian's saying is rubbish and usual stuff. But then this 65-year-old Maori lady got up and she said, well, I want to say something. She was quite angry. And she said, I completely agree with everything Julian said. And we Maori got to get it. We have all this on video. She said, we Maori got to get our act together. And I agree with her. I went, and then she said, we're all one. We're all New Zealanders. And the whole crowd gave her a huge big clap. So Maori, you know, in my opinion, there's a heck of a lot of issues Maori have got to face and deal with to sort out their stuff, to stop people acting in a racist way towards them, because they're causing it. They're causing this behavior. And it doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes out of the observation of other cultures watching other cultures, and they've found in Maori a lot to be racist about, because there's evidence everywhere that they're a people group who have a lot of work to do. This is what this Maori lady said in our meeting. But they don't want to own it. They want more handouts and more freebies and more of this and more of that. Well, more.
Okay, more. Again, some of them. Okay, and that's actually...
I've made that clear. Yeah. I'm talking about the people who are letting down the Maori race. And I don't know how many there are, but there's a lot of people who are giving Maoridom a very bad name. And Maori should sort out Maori. Yeah. Because it's their culture. Yeah. But
I agree with that. Maori should sort out Maori, but then there's also that behaviour that you were just talking about, where that, you know, you say some of them disappear over to Australia, because I've seen some of those organisations in the North Island who make statements like they want their Maori to come back and do, you know, the young Maori come back and live like the way that those particular you know, Maori live. Well, that's kind of a bit of a dictatorship behaviour as well. Like you said, so, reasonably bullying. You know, a lot of our younger Maori people aren't full Maori anyway, but they're also getting on with life, living, and not wanting to be pulled back into all those old tikanga ways. And why should they have to? You know, so there is a lot of that pressure on the young, like you said, and they take off. There's also another point to that. My sons were on the Māori roll, and I know other people who went on the Māori roll, and then to actually get off, they couldn't even just get off when they wanted to. There was a real restriction around them being able to change to the general role. So, you know, I mean, what is that kind of control there? Now, contrary...
Well, I know what's behind that. I know what's behind that. Do you know what's behind that?
Enlighten me.
Okay, according to electoral rules, for every 33,000 people on the electoral roll, Maori get another seat on the Maori electoral roll. Europeans, it's 47,000. And so Willie Jackson's going around the country encouraging everybody to get on the Maori roll because they want to get more and more Maori seats. The Royal Commission, this is serious. It's really serious, because they could legitimately become a block. Imagine a block of Willie Jackson, Mahuta, Kelvin Davis, Kiri, all these guys, and you and Waititi, and you have a block of 25 of them in Parliament. New Zealand's completely finished if that happened, and it's being made possible by electoral law right now. And so I'm fighting that, and we should have the Royal Commission, when MMP was set up, recommended that Maori seats be abolished. And they should be, absolutely should be abolished, because right now, Maori are only 14% of the population, like I said, but 25% of MPs in Parliament are Maori. So they're overrepresented in Parliament already. What the heck are they doing having Maori seats? It's wrong.
I'm really glad that you've unpacked that a little bit, because I wasn't aware of how that worked either. So it's good that other people now will see why you're talking about removing the Maori seats, because, you know, that's something I needed to get my head around too. So look, when we're talking about, we'll just finish up in a minute with discrimination and racial stuff, and then you can go on to co-governance. But contrary to what modern day rhetoric is or would have us believe, racial oppression and discrimination find no colour group that's innocent of this practice, okay? This is not only about Māori and non-Māori. Coloured people racially discriminate against white people as well, Pākehā, okay? As well as other different cultures, of course. You know, there's an example in Africa where Africans often discriminate against Arabians and other, you know, Indians and Chinese, etc. But also, in addition to racial discrimination and the conflict that between all the different cultures, there's discrimination and conflict between people of the same culture as well. And you probably know that. I mean, the tribes, we know this even if we go way back to the 1800s. The tribes themselves, the Māori tribes, right? They were at war all the time. We know that. Look, even religious groups are at odds with each other, and there's discrimination there. You've got the widely known examples of the conflicts of the Irish Catholics and the Irish Protestants, and we could go into Chinese with their, you know, what they do to, I can't remember the name of them, Weber, you know, it's pretty shocking. So there's behaviours all over. This is a worldwide issue. You talked before about stopping racist behaviour if Māori cleaned up their act. I don't know if we will ever stop racist behaviour, okay? I don't think that's a possibility completely. There's a way of moving forward where we actually...
I disagree. I think that if Māori became model citizens and a model race...
it would
be phenomenal.
I don't know if there's a model race, to be honest. I think, you know, the talk about a model race is, I'm not so on board with that. But look, can you touch on the what you've started, who you are, and why you are travelling around the country around co-governance? Thanks, Julian.
Okay, well, I did an interview with Paul Brennan from RCR Radio, and he asked me those questions, and so I'll give you my own background about what New Zealand Herald did a 2-page spread on me, saying the headline was "What Triggered Julian Batchelor Like I'm a Psychopath on the Loose." Oh. And it's okay. It's just the media. But that's okay. So I I read what they wrote, and it was mostly just completely rubbish. But this is the truth of what happened. In 2008, I purchased a beautiful piece of land in the Bay of Islands. It was in 3 lots. It was an amazing piece of land. It isn't, I've still got it. It's an amazing piece of land, and it had a beach on both sides. And one of those beaches was arguably the most beautiful beach in the whole of New Zealand. It's called Oki Bay, O-K-E Bay. And so it was in 3 lots, and I thought, you know, I had a little mortgage, so I thought I'd just sell a little piece of land at the end and get rid of my mortgage. So I rang up Bailey's, and I said to Bailey's, come and sell this piece of land for me. Put up a sign. Within an hour, it was chopped down with an axe. Now, you can tell it was an axe because what was left in the ground, you could see all the chop marks on it. And then signs started appearing all over my land. This is Maori land, not for sale. And then videos started appearing. This is a racist who's bought the land, and we're going to get this land back, and we're going to raise money, and if you want to help. And it was a big, scary, intimidating thing. Now, I bought in this community was 99% Maori, the most staunch Maori community probably in New Zealand. This is Rāwhiti. And, you know, that tells you I'm not a racist, because who would buy in that community if you were a racist? You'd go for a white community, wouldn't you? You go for a 99% white community or 100% white community, like, you know. So I bought there because I was brought up in Waitangi Boys High, where we all were just mates going to school. I had Maori in my class. I had Maori in the sport that I was playing, and We were colorblind. Anyway, so this happened. The next thing, I got a telephone call from the police, and they said, you better call off this sale because we've had an email from Maori and Rafferty saying they're coming down with a bus to smash up the auction rooms if this sale goes ahead. So I thought, whoa, what have we got ourselves into here? Now, between 2008 and 2015, there was a beautiful 2-story, 140-year-old villa right on the beach, which me and a whole lot of other guys, we restored. We put about $1 million into it. And it was wonderful. And we thought, you know what, we should really rent this out now. It's looking so beautiful over Christmas 2015, which we did to raise some funds. And we had 3 South African families rent the house, and it was their dream holiday. They came all the way from South Africa. And anyway, New Year's Eve 2015, I got a phone call at 2 a.m, and there's a sound of smashing glass and screaming and shouting and a heck of a lot of noise. And I said, what's going on? I knew it was Oakey Bay because I knew the lodge there. I knew the number. And they said, we're having a home invasion. We've got 20 Maori men doing a haka on the front lawn. Okay. They're smashing windows. They're rattling on the doors, trying to get inside. And I said, look, I'm so sorry. She said, we've got children wetting their beds and the screaming. This is in between the sound of smashing and screaming and shouting and everything. She was getting these words out. So I said, look, I'll just get up there as soon as I can. I put my clothes on, got in the car, rang the police on the way and said, we've got a really big problem at this property. This is what's happening. Well, they didn't arrive till 9 a.m, about 7 hours later. And so when I got there, it was like a movie scene. There was just glass everywhere and broken weatherboards, cars smashed in, boulders had been thrown at the cars. It was chaos. They caused $10,000 worth of damage. So I went down into the community, and it was a terror attack. So I went down into the community and I said, why'd you do that? And they said, oh, your lands were stolen from us. And I said, I don't care. Dear. Why didn't you come and talk to me? Got nothing to do with them. This is women and children there. What kind of people are you? And anyway, so they told me some stories about the land, and I said, doesn't matter what your stories are. You should never do stuff like that. So I went and researched the history of the land. I spent 3 months researching it. I went to Archives New Zealand, Maori Land Court, and a whole of other places because I'm an author as well, and I'm a journalist. And I found out that land, see, it always costs the victim money. These Maori who did that just walk out, create $10,000 worth of damage, terrorize and bully everybody, walk out, no consequences. I have to clean up. I have to get all the insurance organized. I have to get all the, the apologies to the South Africans and write everywhere to everybody about what had happened. And I'm the guy who has to take time off work. They don't have any of that. The perpetrators, the criminals, they just walk away, washing their hands, saying that was fun. I have to do all this. So I had to write this book, took time off work, and I wrote a 200-page book. And the truth of the matter was that land was sold outright by a Maori family in 1937. And they sold it to the school teacher who'd been working in the community for 17 years. His name was Thomas Thompson. And he and his wife were like the schoolmaster. They were the vet, they were the nurse, they were the doctor, they were the counselor, they were everything. And the community absolutely loved them. And the whole community in Rafferty turned up in Russell for a 3-day court case. It was then the Maori Land Court. And the whole community turned up to support the sale, except one person. And she was after the land for herself. But it was exactly the opposite of what Maori in 2015 was saying, with their narrative, which was all lies, just complete BS. So I put this book online. It's still online. You can read it. And all the Maori in the community read it. And I said, you owe me $10,000. I said, good people put things right that they do wrong. I've proved you wrong. You need to come up my driveway with a check for 10 grand. And you need to apologize to all the South Africans. You need to pay for my petrol and all my time that I've spent cleaning up after your mess. Nothing, just dead silence. So I had to forgive all that, try and move on. And in 2018, another Maori, we didn't hear from anybody in the community in all those years between 2008 and 2015. And they just treat you, stonewall you, total silence. You wave to them, they don't wave back. They obviously wanted you to get a message. We hate you, we don't like you, we don't want you. That's the message they wanted to give everybody that we had in our home. And every now and then, videos would go up online every 6 months with denigrating and slanderous videos online about how terrible we were and how we're desecrating their urupā and how we're chopping down kauri trees. We're the only ones who planted 600 native trees in the whole area, made it beautiful. We restored the house. Anyway, go on. 2018, another Maori lady comes up the driveway and she says, I want my land back. I said, look, I've researched the history of this land. You need to go and read my book. You know about that book. Anyway, she got close to me. She engaged me. And she got her fingernails in the top of my arms, my upper arms, and she started to rake them up and down my arms. And I thought, I better be careful here because I could become the criminal. She becomes the victim if I just give her the bash. And when there was blood all down my arms, I thought, that's enough. I said, okay, that's enough now. I just turfed her down the driveway, and it was all captured on camera. It was given to the police, perfect sound, perfect video. She went to court. She was charged by the police with an assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, and the judge let her off. And the gallery just walked out. They were disgusted, the whole gallery, but not my friends, just people saying, how does this happen? Well, the government was paying judges or advising judges to let Maori off so they could bring the stats down to make the government look better at election time. So that lady went back to the community, and the message was to the community, hey, you can assault Julian. There's no consequences. So we had to forgive that. Then 2022, another Maori, we don't see anybody between these visits, but another lady comes up the driveway and she says, can I have a meeting with you? And I said, okay. And I said, what time would you like to have a meeting? Because I always want to keep the door open, try and keep dialogue going. But, you know, we'd always try and win them over by giving away appliances and beds and soil and, you know, timber and everything. They never said thank you. They just didn't feel they're entitled to it. And because we'd leave stuff at the bottom of the driveway and say free to a good home, it would always go, but nobody'd ever come up the drive and say, hey, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So in 2022, this lady came up and we had this meeting, a little bit of small talk, and she said, well, let me just cut to the chase. I said, okay, where you go? What have you come for? She said, if you don't give us your land, we're going to burn your house down.
Oh, wow.
And we'd spent 8 and 10 years restoring that house, and it took a lot of work and a heck of a lot of effort and a lot of money. And it was mostly volunteers and friends and everything who helped restore it. And it'd been going on for 10 years. They said, if you don't give us your land, we're going to burn your house down. And I said, why would I do that? No, I was recording everything on my cell phone. She didn't know that, but I did. And she said, we just want it. And I said, well, you have to pay for it. If you want something, you have to pay for it. This is 2020. This is 2022. This is not 1830 where you just come on a raid. Anyway, the conversation went on. I gave that to the police. The police came back and said, we can't charge her. I said, why not? They said, because she didn't say, I am going to burn the house down. She said, we are. Now, she represented the whole community. I found out from the community that they'd sent her up trying to just, you know, do this. So we had to forgive that as well. And then last year, about halfway through the year, I got a letter from Heritage New Zealand, which is really just a Maori organisation in Wellington. It's like a marae. And they said, dear Mr. Batchelor, we've reclassified your land. This is my life savings. We've reclassified your land as wahi tapu. Basically, we have control of it now, but you still pay the rates. And I went, no way. Am I going to accept this? And so I said, well, how do you justify that? They said some sacred body was dragged across the land in 17 something like that. And I said, where's the proof for that? No proof. And then I found out on the bottom of some emails that were me corresponding with them, one of the minions inside Heritage New Zealand forgot to take off his correspondence with the locals. And it said something like this, hey, bro, this is the Wellington guy talking. Hey, bro, we got the land. High five. Should we come up for a feed in the marae?
Oh, God.
But when I read that, I went, okay, that's enough. That's enough. I'm going to mobilise and tell New Zealand about all this. This is tribal rule. This is what's coming to New Zealand. and I've had 14 years of it, and I'm going to mobilise, tell the whole of New Zealand about what's going on here. And then I was frenetically studying the Treaty of Waitangi because I thought I need to know this document better than any historian in New Zealand, which I haven't got to that stage yet. I don't think. Who knows? But I'm teaching about the Treaty of Waitangi inside my meetings, and Nobby Clark, the Mayor of Invercargill, said it was the best explanation of the Treaty of Waitangi that he's heard in 60 years.
Wow. Hey, Julian, I appreciate your backstory and what an experience to deal with. I know we all have a story, but that's speechless. The fact is, I think it needs to be told, your backstory, as well as, like, I don't know how much of that you talk about in these meetings, but, if people can hear that side first, which is why this is important, to get your story out there and then to know why you're doing this. I think this is huge. Thank you. I appreciate that. And how long ago was this, the lady who said to you they're going to burn down your home? Last year. So this is really recent behaviours as well. And like you said, a lot of that behaviour you've talked about is tribal stuff. And maybe I'm a little bit naive because I'm in the South Island and we don't deal with as much as, far north kind of those behaviours. I think maybe I can say I'm a bit fortunate in that. But, so I have no idea on that level of what you're experiencing. So I don't have an opinion on any of that. So I appreciate your sharing this. Okay, that's certainly an eye-opener. And I imagine most of New Zealand would be horrified hearing this, in particular those who don't even know what is going on up that way. So where are you now then? You've been travelling around the country. How many meetings have you held?
We've had about 30 meetings, and they're popping up everywhere, and so we're heading for about 100 meetings. I've got every single day in July is apart from one or two, sometimes I'm doing 2 meetings a day, and then August is filling up fast, and then September will fill up fast. So, and the number of books being printed is going gangbusters because people want to know about this, and I think it's the biggest issue that New Zealand's ever faced since 1840, and it's not going to go away. It's not like inflation, which comes and goes, and house prices which come and go, and food prices that come and go. This is not going to come and go. The Maori Party has said we want to be in complete control of New Zealand by 2040. That's in my
I've heard a similar comment to that, and that's really concerning. Now, while from my perspective down here as a South Islander, obviously, for us it's like, we're all living happily amongst our Maori brothers and sisters and family. So for you up there, further up, these kind of experiences, we just unaware. So I can see the issues and the concern, and I appreciate that. And I think if we can obviously share this, and people that are listening out there and are watching, if you can share this, because I'm sure that the majority of Māori out there don't want this kind of behaviour happening, because we are, like you said, we are one people, and apart from those that, however many there are, the group of those elites and those real radicalised Māori who are doing this. And let's not forget that those elite that are in positions of power, all of those, that billions of money that is being passed on around them, none of that trickles down to the regular everyday Māori people. Okay, let's not forget that. I think that from what I'm hearing and seeing, this is something where Māori themselves are going to need to be standing up with you and us as a country, standing against this horrendous bully behaviour. It's criminal. We know what happened way back in the 1800s, and we've been paying for that, and how many more generations are our grandchildren and their children going to continue paying for something that they had no control over? And I'll just give you an example. I started a law degree 2 years ago. So I'm halfway through a law degree, and my very first year at uni, I've been to uni before, but this is my second time, as a mature person. And the very first year in my law degree, we have this Maori tutor who came out, because you're probably aware that every paper now has to have a Maori component to it, whether you want it or not. And so she comes out to take her section of the degree. Fine, no problem. However, when she comes out and starts talking, she's telling the audience of, as you can imagine, mostly young people straight out of high school. There's a group of us mature students, but mainly they are young people. And so she's setting the scene by saying to these young, vulnerable adolescents, you guys are going to feel uncomfortable. She's putting it onto them that they should feel uncomfortable about what happened, okay, about all of the, all their version of it as well. So she's making them feel guilt right there and then. And it's quite, it's criminal to put this onto our young people. And the more we do this, even as you'd know, the stuff that's all coming into our schools, our primary and secondary as well. But it's, this is shocking behaviour. Now, I emailed this particular lecturer because if you know anything about our party, we do oppose co-governance, and we oppose a lot of the race-based policies. So knowing that basically last election we had, a lot of people, elite Maori, running around saying that, we're this and that and racist or what have you. You've heard me talk. I'm not a racist person. I love Maori. They're my family. But I wanted to, and my co-leader at that time, we wanted to show New Zealand that, who we actually are, that we are, we care about everybody. But what I wanted to do with this lecture was I wanted to have a conversation with her and ask her how we can move forward as a party with the differences that we have and what she's spewing out, can I say. But do you know what? She couldn't even respond to me. And what does that tell you about her level of racism? She could not, like every lecturer that I have emailed throughout my time at university, they always respond. Could be, some of it's a little bit later, but she never actually responded at all to that email that I was reaching out to her to try to, let's work together. And I suggested, as a party that she could potentially help us to, have these conversations and make sure that we were listening to all people. But she couldn't even get to the point of communicating with me to even respond.
Well, that's an easy one, because they're engaged in heavy psychological warfare.
Yeah.
And guilt and shame are a major part of disempowering people to not protest about the elite Maori takeover of New Zealand. So they've all been trained to cause people to feel guilty and shameful with the view of disempowering them so they do not oppose what's going on, and not only don't oppose it, but actually join in with supporting it. And so they're capturing the children, university students, little kids, and even as kindergartens, marifying them. And what's happening in New Zealand is, honestly, it's akin to, history was one of my majors at uni. It's akin to 1920s and 1930s Germany. Now, New Zealand, many New Zealanders are becoming awake, but many are not. And of course, the $55 million public interest journalism fund has tied up most of the media, and so they're supporting this. They have to, because they're being paid to. They're in a contractual relationship with the government to support the government narrative. So we have an extremely serious situation. My thinking is, for your Conservative, the new leader of the new Conservative Party, my thinking is this: if you came out against co-governance as your central pillar of your party, you would get your 5%, no problem at all. Because at the moment, There's no party that's coming out completely against it, and certainly not the main feature of their political policy. Luxton is not reading the barometer of the country. He should be winning by a landslide, but he's not. In fact, he's going to lose votes. ACT is going to gain votes. And the problem you have is this: is say you get, say, a new Conservative Party in there, and you're in there with a coalition with National ACT or New Zealand First or somebody, whatever. What's the Maori Party going to do, and the Greens and the Labour Party? They're going to go away for 3-6 years, and they're just going to regroup. And as soon as they get back in, and they will, because that's just how the political pendulum swings, they will put the pedal to the metal, and they'll all start up again with co-governance, with all the stuff we've got today, except they'll be twice as organised, twice as well-funded, and twice as determined. Debbie Naropaka has said, we're going to get New Zealand by 2040. That's it. They're open about it, and it's in Heipuapu, it's in Maitiki Mai, the constitutional plans they have. So New Zealanders and whatever party comes out and fights against co-governance like there's no tomorrow, you're gonna win by a landslide.
Look, I think what you've told me and what you've enlightened me with, I'm definitely going to look more into it, because I mean, it's easy for me to say we're opposed to co-governance, but actually having a better understanding is really important. And I think you've given me that. So you will hear a lot more from us. But I just want to read something to you that somebody in our party has said, and then I want your thoughts on that. I mean, you've kind of almost answered it in what you've just said about this is not going to go away. And even if, we got in this time. So this person has said the cancer has already metastasized, and it will be all but impossible to stop the takeover by the Maori elite, which is what you're saying, of most, if not all, of our institutions. They are already firmly embedded in everything from education to health to regional and local government to transport to policing, housing, social welfare and conservation. They have taken over most of our biggest corporations, for example, the Air New Zealand, right? Every time I fly now, and I'm flying a lot, you've got to put up with the, what I call it's not just the Maori stuff, it's actually myths and legends. I mean, really? Imagine them playing something about Christianity. It's the Maori spiritual side is actually putting it all across everybody, like we have to adopt this myths and legends. And the list could go on and on. But you alluded to it. Changing the government will not remove these bureaucrats who sit firmly on these woke thrones, right? And who are the gatekeepers, and they will come back. So he goes on to say, this person said that the problem is that over the last few decades, they have got themselves into these positions of influence everywhere, which we've seen. More importantly, they have captured the mindset of the coming generations through infiltration of our schools, which is happening right now. To change this, we'd need to remove half of the teachers in the schools. These teachers are powerful indoctrinations. And I also agree with that because of what's happening in the gender space. And I know we're not here to talk about that now, but we need to remove the whole Ministry of Education, as far as I'm concerned, to remove the wokeness. Now, he also gave me an example of what happened in, the ARA, so the old Polytech, how they have got, they've gone divided it into 4 regions now, and each region has 2 co-heads. For each of the regions, one of the heads has to be Maori, I don't know if you know this, and the other can be any race at all. So here's the thing, out of 8 positions in those 4 regions, 7 are either Maori or Pacifica, and there is only 1 European. So at Wintec, the existing head has been replaced by 2 managers who used to report to him. And, apparently it's a little bit of a mess. So, and as far as they don't know what they're doing. And I have heard that there's a chaos. So this is the kind of level of, people who are going to be running our institutions. Is this what we want? It's no different than when they're talking about the gender, 50-something% of women in Parliament. I don't want 50% of women if they're useless. And there's some useless ministers in Parliament that are females that shouldn't be there. Our airy-fairy education minister is one, Jan Taniti. She is, oh my gosh, I'm so concerned about our education. Not only is she that, but she's also our Minister for Women. And you didn't hear peep out of her when we had those women who were attacked at on the rotunda where I was actually going to speak as well. So, that's my concern. I don't want people based on race or gender. I want people that can do the job, that has the ghoulies to stand up and run the country and get on with making sure that we actually improve our country, not keep running it into the ground. So that's my little rant there, Julian, just so that as a party, we want good people. We want to have a good direction. And what's happening now, as you know, it's been divisive. We've got children running around who don't know what their identity is, are being lied to in schools. So as far as what you're doing, I thank you. If there's anything else that you want to add to let the people know, I know that you've got a meeting, which I didn't know about, in Christchurch Thursday, and I'll make sure I get to that now. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the people around what they can do out there, those who might be hearing for the first time around this co-governance? What can people do to help push back this co-governance?
Well, I've listened very carefully to everything you've said, and of course I agree with everything you've said. However, I think you've unwittingly missed a major issue, the major issue, and that is that none of what is happening in New Zealand, and as far as elite Maori are concerned, or governance of New Zealand is concerned, and Maori infiltration into absolutely every area of New Zealand, none of this is mandated in the treaty. So one of the things, absolutely none of it. So one of the focus of my seminar is the Treaty of Waitangi, to teach people what it really says. And when they see that, they get extremely angry and motivated to stop it, to stop all this nonsense. Because this is fraud. What's going on, everything you've described is fraud and corruption. And it's being cited that the treaty mandates this. That's just the biggest lie New Zealand has ever been sold. And so we need to examine the treaty and expose the corruption and the fraud so that we can right the ship. And if we obeyed the treaty in Maori, we'd have a beautiful country, which is what I'm bringing everybody back to. Say, let's go back to the original treaty in Maori. That's not what's being used by the Waitangi Tribunal. It's not what's displayed around the place. And New Zealand's in huge trouble. And we have got to stop it. So I just encourage people to get to our meetings so they can be informed. The media is constantly lying about me, about the meetings, and they have to be because they're contractually paid to be like that. So get to the meetings, and then I hope that the new Conservatives can be a group who, a party that becomes the number one party in New Zealand to fight against co-governance, and you will get your 5%. I could guarantee it, because you don't sell 350,000 books in 14 weeks for no reason. It's becoming the major political issue, but you've got to read the barometer to align your party with that barometer.
Absolutely. And you've, like I said, you've helped me to see a little bit more of what I need to know to be able to oppose this. And it was clear with your Maori lady that you said was in your recent meeting, who stood up and said she agrees with you. Like I have said, I'm sure that a majority of Maori would be agreeing with this. And so, there's some work to do in that space, and we will do what we can as well as a party. I'll make sure I go back and have a lot more conversations about this. Now, for those of you who are out there watching this later on, gosh, that sound's coming in my room. Sorry about that. For those of you who are watching this, leave a comment. Now, if you've got any questions for Julian or myself, add them to the thread, and we'll get back to you. Just move from that sun, and we will get back to you in the next couple of days. So, thank you for watching. Make sure you share this everywhere you can, because this needs to go out. The story that Julian has shared from his personal account is horrific, and that needs to go out. It needs to go out for every single New Zealander, Maori, any other culture, or European. We all need to be talking about this everywhere. So I thank you, Julian, for your time today. We really appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. If I can get through the crowd to say hi, I'm sure that we will have you on the interview again at some stage. So really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your good work, and all the best with the election. I'd love to see you do well.
Thank you.